The 1970s, they were hockey's Wild West, a decade of flying fists and sharpened elbows and frontier justice on skates. But on October 25, 1978, that chaos crossed the line in what is still called the most vicious on-ice act in a decade filled with mayhem. This is the story of Wilf Paiement and how he became forever linked to one of hockey's darkest chapters. Wilf Paiment's life and career were pure Canadian myth and madness. On October 16, 1955, Wilfred Michel Paiement was born in a French-speaking town of Earlton, Ontario, the lumber and mining town 350 miles north of Toronto. He was the youngest of 16 children of Wilfred Sr. and Rosalia Paiement. Now, Wilfred Sr. was best known for his feats of strength. Legend has it he once wrestled a 700-pound brown bear at the Quebec Coliseum and, quote, left the bear sprawled on the mat defeated. Wilf's brother Rosaire paved the way to pro hockey, playing 186 NHL games before jumping to the World Hockey Association. Rosaire was a tough and talented player in both leagues. Young Wilf was just as tough as his older brother, but more volatile and better skilled. In 1973-74, Wilf scored 50 goals for the OHA St. Catharines Blackhawks and was drafted second overall by the expansion Kansas City Scouts in the 1974 NHL Draft. In the heat of the NHL WHA wars, the 6'1" and 205-pound Paiement was awarded a 3-year contract worth about $200,000 per year. Kansas City had a new franchise, and Wilf was its first star. But the Scouts were a disaster, dead last in attendance, performance, and interest. Paiement had no supporting cast, but he scored goals and played tough. After a 26-goal rookie season, he added 21 more in just 57 games the following year and earned the first of 3 straight NHL All-Star Game selections. By the time the franchise moved to Colorado and became the Rockies in 1976-77, Wilf had a reputation: talented, powerful, and volatile. He was not a player to mess with. That year, he compiled 41 goals and 40 assists and earned many votes for the NHL postseason All-Star consideration. Still, the Rockies were a bottom feeder in the NHL. So instead of playoff hockey, Paiement, along with stars from other losing teams, was a regular on Team Canada at the World Ice Hockey Championships held each spring. Now, Wilf's first brush with hockey scandal came at the World Championships in Vienna in 1977. It wasn't pretty. Paiement, frustrated in a humiliating 11-1 defeat to the Soviets, attacked multiple Soviet players, most notably striking Sergei Babinov in the head with his stick, rendering him concussed. Paiement was one of Canada's most criticized players after the blowout, but he was unapologetic. Quote, "They don't like the way I play. Too bad," he said. "I came here to win, not to shake hands." Paiment's stick work drew the scorn of European and Canadian press, one paper calling him the, quote, "epitome of Canadian disgrace." These incidents contributed to Paiment's reputation for violent conduct on the ice. But back in the NHL, he kept producing. In 1977-78, he tallied 31 goals and had 87 points. He was the face of the Rockies franchise and was now hitting his peak. He even redeemed himself internationally with productive and disciplined performances at the World Championships. But all that positive momentum came to a screeching halt on October 25, 1978, when he crossed paths with a persistent nemesis, Dennis "Polo" Polonich, as the Rockies visited Detroit's Olympia Stadium. But first, a little background on Polonich. Now, unlike Paiement, he was not a coveted prospect. In fact, he wasn't drafted until the 8th round by Detroit in the 1973 NHL Draft. But he soon made a name for himself in Detroit as a hustling, agitating, and fearless competitor. And he amassed 302 penalty minutes in just 57 games as a rookie in 1975-76. At 5'6" and 165 pounds, he was sometimes referred to as, quote, "the midget goon." Midway through the October 1978 game in question, Detroit goalie Rogie Vachon had stopped a Paul Gardner breakaway try and steered the puck to the left corner. Polonich collected the puck while Paiement bore down on him on the forecheck. Now, details here get murky. Accounts said that Polonich cleared the puck and purposely clipped Paiement on the follow-through, cutting him on the lip. What happened next would alter their careers and their lives forever. After being cut by Polonich, Paiement reportedly took a two-handed baseball bat-like swing with his stick and struck Polonich with such force it left him unconscious and severely injured. Referee Dave Newell immediately assessed Paiement a 10-minute match penalty for deliberate injury, while Polonich was given a 5-minute high sticking penalty. Polonich was helped off the ice bleeding heavily. He was transported by ambulance to Henry Ford Hospital, where doctors treated him for multiple facial lacerations and a broken nose. He needed extensive plastic surgery and suffered a concussion that affected him for the rest of his life. Before the NHL hearing on the issue, Polonich stated, quote, "I ought to sue him. He's yapping, saying I deserve it. Nobody deserves a two-hander across the face." The NHL suspended Paiement for 15 games. At the time, that was the second longest suspension in recent NHL history. Bobby Crom, Detroit's coach, was furious. Quote, "He swung his stick like a baseball bat. He should be gone for a year. That wasn't hockey, that was criminal." Though he welcomed the league's decision to suspend Paiement, Polonich said it still didn't feel like justice. Quote, 15 games? That guy nearly ended my career. It's hard to breathe, my head still throbs, and I can't sleep right." At this point, Wilf Paiement became the poster boy for hockey violence, and the next chapter of the Polonich saga was still to unfold. So what do you think? 15 games. It seems a little light by today's standards, but back then, people in Colorado were saying that the penalty was much too punitive. Of course, Polonich and the Red Wings felt it was entirely insufficient. But what do you think? Was 15 games a fair, putting in context the time frame, was 15 games a fair penalty for Paiment's actions in this case, as we get back to the story? Polonich would eventually come back, but he was nowhere near the same player. After averaging about 17 goals per season up until the Paiement Incident, he scored just 4 goals total in the next 2 seasons before being demoted to the American Hockey League. Although he did pop up briefly in the NHL in 1982, just long enough to break Raymond Bourque's jaw in this fight. He retired in 1987. In December 1979, Paiement was traded to the Toronto Maple Leafs in a blockbuster deal that also sent Lanny McDonald to Colorado. Leaf fans were livid as McDonald was popular and productive and in the midst of what would be a Hall of Fame career. Meanwhile, Paiement was skilled but notorious, and he raised a few eyebrows when he arrived in Toronto because his number 9 was unavailable. He doubled up and ended up wearing number 99 instead. A post-career, he'd have some fun with that decision.
It's Leon's historic 99th birthday, and who better to tell you about all the incredible deals than Mr. 99 himself, all-star hockey great, Wilf Paiement.
What? You're expecting someone else?
Leon's 90...
Paiement scored 22 goals in 42 games the rest of the 79-80 season and settled in nicely with his new club. Now that off-season, Polonich, still suffering from migraines and facing reconstruction surgery, filed suit against Paiement and the Rockies' former ownership for pain and suffering. Despite this distraction, Paiement recorded his best ever season in 1980-81 with 40 goals and 97 points, playing on a line with Darryl Sittler. Quietly, he was having the best stretch of his NHL career.
To the side of the net, and the Leafs get a 2-on-1. Paiement coming in with Martin. Paiement gets set, shoots, scores! Paiement took a look, another look, finally left.
Despite Wilf's success as a Leaf, in 1981-82, Toronto shipped him to Quebec for forward Mirko Frichier. The Nordiques were high-scoring and on the rise. Paiement joined the Stastny's, Réal Cloutier, Dave Hunter, and Michel Goulet on this high-octane team and gave them needed size and snarl. He scored 39 goals in his first season, then 38 the next, and Quebec made the playoffs 3 years in a row.
Sauvé again to Paiement. Shot. Score. Power shot. Power shot.
Polonich initially sued for $85,000, but the Rockies insurance company only offered $50,000. Polonich refused that offer, and the case was sent to a jury where a 6-person Detroit civil jury, comprised of 5 women and 1 man, awarded Polonich $850,000 in damages. The result stunned the hockey world. With interest, Polonich would earn nearly $1 million. Tax-free. Polonich was elated, stating, quote, "It's like winning the lottery." Now, insurance picked up most of the tab with Rockies' former owner Peter Gilbert paying the remaining $85,000 Paiement was held liable for. But the Polonich-Paiement saga still wasn't over. Now, Paiement enjoyed a few more solid seasons in Quebec before being traded to the New York Rangers in 1986. He was left unprotected in the 1986 NHL waiver draft and signed by the Buffalo Sabres. After a quiet respite from controversy, he once again earned negative headlines, breaking Bruins forward Charlie Simmer's jaw in an act that some Bruins insisted was an intentional spear. Now, after a brief stay in Pittsburgh, Paiement was out of hockey by 1988. But even in retirement, Paiement was still paying the price for what happened in Detroit a decade before. In 1989, a court ordered him to pay $85,000 to the late Rockies owner Peter Gilbert's estate. The judge said it was fair. Gilbert's insurance company had covered Paiment's share of the Polonich judgment, but since Paiement admitted guilt in civil court, he personally owed the debt. By all accounts, Paiement was well-liked, personable, and highly respected by his teammates. But he remains defiant regarding Polonich. In a 2025 podcast with Chris Nyland, he basically summed up the infamous 1978 clash as, quote, "Live by the sword, die by the sword." Now, today, Paiement lives quietly in Mississauga, Ontario. Polonich, still bearing the scars from the incident, has acknowledged that Paiement never apologized. In retrospect, 1970s hockey violence was out of hand. The Paiement-Polonich verdict and penalty may have been the first real wake-up call, a legal line in the sand that told NHL players the days of unchecked violence were numbered. For 3 years, Paiement was one of the best power forwards in the league, with a future befitting that of a number 2 overall draft pick. But after 1978, he'd never play in another NHL All-Star game or garner even a single vote for an NHL postseason award. Still, his career stats are impressive. 946 NHL games, 356 goals, 458 assists, 814 points, and 1,757 penalty minutes. But unfortunately for Wilf, it's just 10 of those penalty minutes that history won't let him forget. So what are your memories of the career of Wilf Paiement? In retrospect, what's your final verdict on the whole Polonich incident? Let's have our usual excellent discussion in the comments section below. And speaking of the comments, I do read them all, and I appreciate the contributions of what I consider to be the most knowledgeable hockey fans on YouTube. Now, if you enjoyed this look back at the career and life of Wilf Paiement, check out this video of another legend of hockey's golden era.
Into the center ice area with part of the pass over the other side. It's a nice score! Beautiful pass to